I have a couple of points here, so you just interrupt me when I'm talking too much.
Why would anything change? I always interrupt you. This is the 20-Minute Attorney Business Development Podcast. My name is Bill Burns, and here with me to discuss how lawyers can make time for business development is the man who will now tell me how he would eat an elephant, Tobi Steinemann.
Wow. Last time I suggested to put frogs in people's heads, and now you're going after the elephants.
I had to have a mascot. You had one. I need one too.
Not a good week or month for the animals. Fortunately, I'd never had to try so far, but because I'm sure you have a point here, I would probably cook it really well and then read up on seasoning or ideal elephant dressings and side dishes. How would you eat an elephant?
You've taken the same tack that too many attorneys take to business development or relationship development. You make it way too complicated. The answer is one bite at a time.
Fair point.
And the same is true in business development. The number one complaint that I hear, or I guess excuse for why people don't pursue more business development opportunity, is they don't have time. Between meeting billable hour goals, responding to clients both internally and externally, trying to maintain a marriage, a relationship, a family, to, do anything outside of work, to find time for themselves. The question is, how do I squeeze in time to develop business? And unfortunately, faced with all of those conflicting priorities, business development, relationship development is often the first thing to fall off of the plate, but it doesn't have to.
So what would you say are concrete strategies that we can apply to make actual time for business development in this, as you mentioned, very busy schedule of a lawyer?
Well, rather than trying to eat the whole elephant at one time or cook it like you would, there are three key strategies. And the most important one, the first one to pay attention to, is being realistic and honest about your priorities and about your strengths and weaknesses. I kind of learned, I don't know if I can relate this to business development, but I learned this lesson the hard way when I decided to train for and attempt an Ironman triathlon. At first, I was, like a lot of attorneys are, I was overwhelmed by the thought of trying to, be able to swim 2.4 miles in open water, follow that with a 112-mile bike ride, and follow that with a marathon, 26.2 miles. And it just was...
So let's just quickly break here. So you actually completed that?
I did complete that, yes.
Okay.
But
well
at first, I was completely panicked about how am I going to fit in all of this training, particularly because I was not a particularly strong swimmer. And I was, I made a number of mistakes. I tried to do everything all the time. I compared myself to other people in the group. One of the guys in the group was a very successful high school swimmer. Every time I went swimming with him, I felt like, I'm not going to make it. There was another individual in the group who had been invited to try out for a couple of Major League Baseball teams, just a fantastic athlete. And I learned that I couldn't compare myself to others, that I had to focus on myself and what I was able to accomplish and the way that I could train to be successful. You have to be honest and realistic about your priorities, because in order to be successful, you have to be consistent and you have to present your best, most authentic self. And you can't do that if you're trying to do too much, or if you're ignoring your weaknesses, or you're trying to model yourself after somebody else who you think is a great example, but really doesn't line up with who you are.
So what does that mean in specific? What do you tell a young lawyer how he could fit in business development? Do you look with him at their schedule, with their families and stuff like that? Or is it that specific what you do?
Absolutely. I think you have to consider every aspect of the attorney's life. I work with a lot of young attorneys who are, starting a family. That's a real pressure point, trying to be a successful parent and be a successful attorney and to develop your practice. Those are three huge goals to achieve at the same time. So then you have to be realistic about what you can do with your time. If I think back to being a young parent, my wife and I spent most of our time with other young parents because a lot of our social life evolved around our children. So why not use that as a method for relationship development? You don't have to go out and try to pitch business when you're at a soccer practice or at children's event. But you could even schedule play dates with other people that you want to develop a relationship. So the kids play together, you have a chance to keep your relationship strong. There's lots of different ways to adjust your relationship development game in accordance with what your lifestyle priorities are, what your lifestyle challenges are.
So it's almost like getting started in the whole business of business development, and getting a business development mindset, starting to develop an interest and an understanding how it works with what's available to you.
Absolutely. And you can take it a step further. I think the goal would be to develop a diverse portfolio of things that you're going to do for relationship development. So say, for example, this is a very busy week where you're a litigator and you have this major deposition that you have to prepare for and that you have to do. And you're not going to have a lot of time. Well, that's the kind of week where you do the small things that don't take a lot of time. Like, everybody has 5 minutes to go on LinkedIn and repost something, or you send an email to a friend checking up on them, sending them an article that you saw, doing something that can be done practically at any time of the day and practically anywhere. You squeeze those things in. Those are, that's one category of business development, relationship development activities, the things that take minutes. Then there are things that take hours, like going to a lunch, going to coffee, going to an event. You schedule those for the weeks when you have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule. And then there are the things that take days, like going to a conference or giving a speech or a presentation. So you're not trying to do them all at the same time. You're trying to do the things you can do when you can do them. So think about it in 3 different categories: minutes, hours, and days.
And it's not only, that's obviously super useful, but it's not only the time issue. It's like you said, it's also the flexibility, right? Some of the business development activities are not bound to a certain time of the day. So you don't have to do them during office hour. If you want to take someone for lunch, then obviously that's during lunch hour, so you have to be there at lunch. But if you do some other things, emailing people, contacting them on LinkedIn, posting something on LinkedIn, you can pick up your kids from school or from play dates at 5-6 p.m. and then do it afterwards when you're settled at home. So there are some business development tasks that offer that kind of flexibility.
Absolutely. And the other key point is, I think you have to be intentional about it. I advise attorneys to set aside dedicated time every week to plan their business development. Sunday night at 8:00 or Monday morning at 8 a.m. I don't know, whatever works for you is what works best. And you sit down and think about the week ahead and the weeks ahead. What can I do this week? Okay, this is going to be a week where I have to develop things that take minutes. But I know that in 3 weeks, I'll be through this trial. Things will be calmer. I could take someone to lunch. So one of the minute activities I could do this week is send an email to a contact suggesting lunch in 3 weeks. You can really, if you're really intentional about it, you can make it work for you so that you maximize the time that you have. And you don't feel like you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
So you tell them to actually set aside time to plan business development, not set aside time for business development, to execute the actual activity.
Absolutely. To set aside time to plan and then set aside time to actually do. You have to do both.
You give them a certain number of hours a week or a month that they have to invest in business development?
No, I don't, because I think that's too hard of a standard to meet. Everything you set up that makes it more difficult gives you a bigger chance of failure. I think you want to make it easy. I think you want to make it achievable, because then once you have a couple of weeks of success in planning out your business development time, it starts to feel pretty good. And you start to feel like, hey, I'm really making some progress here. I'm on a plan. I'm on a track to be successful. So Tobi, how do you, what strategies do you give to lawyers to make time for business development?
I see 2 big time savers, let's call it like that. One would be basically optimizing, in terms of content marketing, optimizing the content that is around and how you produce content to be visible as a business development technique. And then the other one would be more on the side of strategic clarity. I think that's also a part where lawyers lose a lot of time. Which one would you like to start with?
Well, why don't you start with the first one?
The content marketing side. Yeah, I think that's really a big area where a lot of time is lost and goes to waste. I have a couple of points here, so you just interrupt me when I'm talking too much.
Why would anything change? I always interrupt you.
That's good. So Well, I think the biggest problem with content marketing is that lawyers always think they have nothing to contribute. So they don't have anything to contribute to a newsletter. They have nothing to contribute to a blog post. And then there's marketing is coming in and tell them, hey, we need a blog post. Can you write something? And they say, I don't know. I have no idea. I have nothing to contribute. I think in most cases that is total BS because there's so many stories and so much content around it. So the first point here is in the sourcing area. So this is about new content. Lawyers lose so much time thinking about what it is they can actually communicate. And the simplest answer to find content is just listen what your clients are asking. I mean, basically every question that a client has is at least a LinkedIn post, if not a blog post or a newsletter contribution or something. So that's basically the best starting point, not just because it saves you time, but also because if you go there, that's right where your clients have questions, and that's where your content actually will be very helpful and effective to them. So the time saver here would be to find a way that works for you and maybe even your team to capture these essential questions. So whenever you had a meeting, get into a mechanism to write down the essential questions that were raised in that kind of meeting and put it in a content marketing parking space. It's also something that you can collaborate with others, and very quickly you will have a list with great topics that are interesting, and you will never lose time again to find something to write about if marketing or Bill Burns come knocking at your door.
What about the strategic clarity side of the ledger? What's important there?
I'm not done with the content.
Oh, you're not done with the content.
So I have a couple of more strategies to optimize content marketing if you're interested in those.
I'm very interested. What other strategies do you have for maximizing content marketing?
So the second part would be to recycle and repurpose content. So if you've already gone through the whole effort of producing content, then make sure that you recycle it and you use it in other formats. There's no need to reinvent the wheels. Let's say you're a labor attorney and you wrote a blog post about the Coldplay incident where a CEO and his employee were caught on the kiss cam. I think you probably remember that. So most lawyers would post on LinkedIn saying, okay, hey, here's my blog post on the Coldplay concert kiss cam incident. You can read it on our website, and then they're done with it. But I think you're missing an opportunity here because most users, they won't read a full blog post right when you tell them to, because they might be in a completely different space or it's not the right time to actually read through it. But they might take a smaller, more specific bite if you present it to them on LinkedIn. So you could write a LinkedIn post about whether the incident is ground for dismissal for the CEO. You can write a LinkedIn post about which private activities can result in consequences for your employment, or even about the matter of employment reputation. So the time saver here again would be to use the content that is already there, and you likely have a blog post already that you can repackage in multiple digestible LinkedIn posts, and that's almost a free pass to impress your business development executive.
Are there any other ways to maximize the content beyond repurposing and taking the view that there's lots of different opportunities to identify content?
I have two more. So another example to use existing content is upcycle it. So again, an example here, we work for a mid-sized Swiss firm. We've been working for them for quite a while. So recently we've implemented for them a concept we call the premium content. So we looked at the performance of the existing blog posts that they have on their website, and we saw that some of them are really driving traffic. So they attract a lot of users. Obviously that topic was well ranked on the Google search, and a lot of potential leads were finding that content. The problem was that this was anonymous traffic. We weren't able to identify these contacts or potential leads. So what we did was we added a step to the already existing content and developed a guideline that was more in depth and offered a step-by-step basically explanation to resolve the question at hand. And that was offered as a PDF download, but obviously to receive the download you had to register your email address, and within days, weeks, this list started to fill up. Business was coming in by itself. The firm was also able to reach out to these people who clearly indicated that they have an interest in this topic and have not only found the website, but also went through the step of actually downloading the document. So suddenly there was tangible tangible business that was attributed to this business development method coming from content that you already had, and the actual effort to produce that additional guideline was very small for the lawyers who already wrote the blog post.
Do you find many attorneys taking advantage of upcycling like that?
No.
Well, maybe
No,
after
it was
this
actually
podcast, they will.
well. I think even in that firm, so this was basically used as a pilot project, also to show the other practice areas that this could work. So they have that functionality now on their website. They can add multiple guidelines or other premium content for certain topics, always with the intention to identify, to turn these leads into qualified leads in the sense that they're identifiable and people can reach out.
That's a huge advantage in terms of getting value out of your content in an effective and efficient way to spend your time.
Yeah. And then the last part would be to reuse your content. I also think that we always overestimate how many people have actually read our content. So mostly lawyers think they, once they posted something on LinkedIn, the whole world has seen it and has read it and has understood it. And I mean, we all know that the opposite is true. First of all, just because we connected to someone doesn't mean that we actually saw the content. And then also we don't necessarily read it or digest it properly. So there's no rule against rephrasing some important key messages and hitting some points a little harder and repeat them. I think that's definitely a benefit for everyone. So, for example, if you're thinking about an HR rep from a company, they probably need to hear about upcoming policy changes a couple of times and to let the urgency to act actually sink in. I mean, probably your labor law attorneys can sing that song that they tell their clients that they need to do something, but until they listen, they need to hear it a couple of times. So the same is happening on the content marketing side.
You know, in communication, I was always taught the rule of 7, that someone has to hear something or be exposed to it 7 times before they fully appreciate it, fully understand it, and begin to connect you with the idea. So that's completely in line with that.
Sounds about right. Just this morning, somebody told me that after watching a couple of our videos on LinkedIn, he finally went and listened to the first episode of our podcast. Maybe it was 7 videos that he watched, and then after the 7th, he decided, okay, let's give this a shot.
Who knows? Who knows?
I think all of these techniques to optimize content marketing, if you bring them together, it's almost like you can think about a certain topic as a little marketing campaign and think about, okay, I go through the effort, I produce the know-how, it's here, why not maximize it? Very quickly, you will realize that from one piece of content, there's a lot of good stuff coming.
So take a strategic approach to the content, similar to the way I said about time, in terms of setting aside time to plan it out and do it in an efficient and effective and disciplined way.
Totally. I think the strategic part is definitely a big issue as well, because a lot of the lawyers or firms, they lack a sense of strategic clarity. The strategic marketing or business development question, they've never actually thought about who are we talking to, what are the personas that we talk to, what are the issues, which channels do we actually use, and how often do we actually produce content for that, who does it. So all these kind of strategic questions are unanswered, and every time they actually then take time to sit down and say, okay, now I want to do something, they almost have to develop a whole marketing plan just for one LinkedIn post or one blog post. If you have to go through all of that when you're producing content, you lose a lot of time and you obviously get overwhelmed and you feel like, okay, this is not worth it. Whereas if you have that kind of strategic clarity ahead in advance, you sit down and you go and you produce the content, and that shouldn't be too much effort. I say that with a little practice, but obviously you have the know-how and the content and the stories inside you. It's just you need to have that sort of clarity to give you the framework to produce it in the right way.
You know, if you think back over the podcasts that we've done and this one today and the point you just made, the point I made earlier, being intentional about business development seems to be a theme that is running through everything we talk about.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you just do it to satisfy your firm's Bill Burns or your own conscience, then that's not going to be successful. It's not something that you just tick the box. It's important for your career. It's important for your firm. It's important for your clients, and it's also something that is useful to your client. It's not you're being the good guy if you do business development in all senses.
So, Toby, what did you take from the session today?
I think from today's session, we can collect 6 time-saving strategies. The first one would be to approach it by bite by bite, not overcook the elephant. The second one would be realistic about your relationship development. Then recognize that not all business development activities take a lot of time or have to be done at a specific time. As you mentioned, be consistent and intentional is certainly also something that will save you time. The content marketing side of things, where you should really optimize the return from what you already have, make the most of your content, and then have some strategic clarity at some point in time ahead. Don't do your strategy every time you sit down. We've reached the end of our episode. Next time we'll be talking about LinkedIn next time. So a lot has happened recently over the last couple of weeks on LinkedIn, and we'll clean that up for you, and we'll discuss what you need to know next time. Bill, thank you very much for today's conversation. I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you, Bill.
I look forward to that as well, Tobi. Enjoyed the time together.